Through the ups and downs, we stand tall in this journey of growth. Day by day, through the ups and downs, we stand tall in this journey of growth. Day by day.
Morning.
Morning.
I don't know why we always start off by laughing at each other.
No, it's quite funny saying morning
Oh yeah.
after you've been talking for half an hour.
Is it half an
As it
hour?
was just,
Oh dear. What are we talking about today, Jules?
we are talking about confidence in following your intuition. So
Yes.
this is stemming on from our little chat last week on intuition and how you might have your intuition and want to follow your intuition and recognize your intuition, but do you have the confidence? So what if a societal expectation is different from what your intuition is telling you? Or what if someone's putting pressure on you? Or what if you have to face some kind of conflict or awkward situation to follow your intuition? Do you have the confidence to do that? Because when we talked about intuition last week, it was a little more about what is intuition and developing your intuition. But I think actually one of the biggest inhibitors to following intuition is confidence in what you have to do to follow it.
Yeah. So the actual listening to the intuition to then follow through with it, like you say, yeah. So what's an example, do you think? What's an example in your life that you've had that before you perhaps had the confidence, or have you always had the confidence?
No, I still don't. I think you used the example quite a lot last time of following your intuition when you had Sean. And when other people were telling you to do different things. And I think that mine was probably the opposite of that. I wanted to follow my intuition. Well, I think I was very confused actually that, I had different people telling me different things. I had friends behaving very differently to how I was being told to do things by other people. And I was a bit.
Was this with the children, with Ezra?
Can you hear noises in the background?
No.
No, just me then.
No.
No. Okay. So I had people who were telling me to do everything intuitively. Oh, intuitively, I mean, it wasn't necessarily intuitive, but follow the natural path. Feed on demand, I guess is the right word. Sleep with my baby. Let the baby sleep whenever she wants to sleep. All of these kind of things. And then I had other people who were very rigid in their routines and who were telling me things like my baby just fell into a routine. So even though they were kind of leaving their baby to cry and feeding only at specific times, they were also telling me that this happened naturally, which really confused me because I couldn't work out why my baby wasn't falling into a natural routine. And so, I remember spending 2 weeks writing, this is what this person told me they'd done, writing down all of the time she fed, all of the time she slept,
oh my goodness,
trying
I wish
to
I'd
look
been that
for a
organised. I'd
pattern.
have probably loved that.
Well, no, you'd think this, but when there's no pattern.
Then, yeah.
And so then I was trying to get her to fall into a pattern, which actually was then me restricting feeding, restricting sleep. And I didn't do that.
It's so hard, isn't it? Especially with the amount of information that there is out there. And I suppose because you've got two, then you kind of learn on the second one, did you? Were you then the second one? Sorry, Shiloh.
Yeah.
Did you then trust your intuition more?
Yeah.
And did you know what you knew what to do really on the?
Yeah, I think I followed my intuition a lot more. I still don't know really, but for me the whole thing is shrouded with like not being confident enough to just do it my way.
I think that was the whole, because I just didn't care what anyone else said. I knew I was so like adamant that I knew what was right, and there was loads that I got wrong. Don't get me wrong, but I was so like, no, like you're not. I know what's right for my child. Like, no matter what anyone said, I was adamant, but I don't know why, more so than anything else.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely it's an expectation thing, I think. Trying to meet the expectations of others, potentially.
Yeah.
But there's other times, you take then moving away from the parenting thing, like where my intuition says one thing, but in order to do that, I'd have to face some kind of confrontation.
Yeah.
Which is challenging.
And then what's an example of that then in your life?
I don't know. Maybe I don't have that problem as much as I think.
Yeah.
But I can imagine it would be a problem.
And do you think sometimes that your intuition is wrong in what it's saying, and that, with times where you're pushing through barriers of things that you haven't done before, perhaps? Say, like, for example, making a podcast, making videos, or things like to do with work, where that it's something that you haven't done before, and your body's probably just going, oh, just don't do it. Like, the feelings are there just saying, like, no, because perhaps you're a bit scared, like I was, of being on camera and things like that. But then it's not necessarily the wrong thing to do. I'm not saying it's a natural thing to do, and your intuition's probably somewhere quite right. In like, what are you doing? Because it's not necessarily a natural thing to do, but it's not wrong.
No, that's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because does your intuition even come into that? I think it's quite normal for our brains to want to stay in the comfortable place, isn't it? And the comfortable place is not putting yourself out there for most people.
Yeah.
Some people love it.
Yeah. But I'd say I was an extrovert type. If you're looking at introvert and extrovert types, and but then now, as I've got older, I think I prefer the introvert life.
Well, that's quite.
I think there's an in between, isn't there?
There is. I read about this yesterday. What do they call it? Omnivert. I don't think it's that at all.
Yeah, it's something like that, because I funnily enough was reading about this yesterday as well. I can't think what it's called.
But that's a slightly different thing, isn't it? And I think that's where people get introvert and extrovert confused, because my understanding is that an introvert is just someone who re-energizes by being alone, and an extrovert is someone who re-energizes by being around people. So you can have introverts that like being around people, but they just need to retreat back to their own space to re-energize, and then extroverts who are quite happy being alone but need to get out and about just to re-energize.
Yeah. So then your intuition is not necessarily, or your confidence in your intuition could be right or wrong.
Well, yeah, that's interesting thinking back. So when you thought, so maybe you are an extrovert, but you also just like having time on your own, but you just need to go and be amongst people to get energy, or the other way around.
But it's the type of person as well now, I think, as I've got older. It's the, like, I won't go and be around, like, I just can't be bothered with small talk, say, for an example. So I won't go and be around people that haven't got a lot to say, or people that you can't converse with, or you just got to talk about the weather and stuff. I know it's a no from me. I won't go.
It's a no from me, Simon Cowell. Do you think, though, it was different before? Do you think that could have been part of your problem, in a sense, that you could have been using substances to get over the fact
100%.
that you weren't giving yourself enough time just on your own?
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely a thing, because it was since I stopped drinking that I love my own company. I'm great to be around on my own.
But that's a thing, isn't it? That is actually a thing, and you didn't even realise, or
no,
people use it, but you thought that you wanted to be around all these people, and doing this stuff.
I think substances definitely hinder your intuition, and it's if you're drinking alcohol, you're then going to lose. You might have more confidence in what you're doing and put yourself in more dangerous situations, or you might miss your intuition keys, particularly putting you in danger.
And maybe you use it to suppress your intuition.
Yeah, that's definitely something, because alcohol was definitely a big factor in my life up until I did like spending time. I didn't think I liked spending time on my own, perhaps then. So, but do you like spending time on your own?
Yeah, I love it. But again,
have you always though?
That's a thing. I'm pretty much the same. I used to think I always wanted to be around people. I actually think to some extent that could be like a codependency thing. Kind of having codependent characteristics. And needing other people, and then through self-development, therapy courses, all these kind of things, emotionally developing and breaking away from some of those codependent characteristics, and realizing that actually I don't need other people, and being comfortable with myself. And I love being, but it could also be a case of continuously being around people, having the kids around all the time.
When they're younger and things like that.
And so I don't have, even though I have time on my own with just them being around, I don't have huge amounts of time of just being on my own, me. But I when I get it, I love it.
But then I say that I like being on my own, but would I like being on my own if I didn't have my dog? Because as soon as it was kind of, and I do recognise my patterns in this, as soon as Sian had kind of got to that age where she didn't need me anymore, I know what I'll do. I'll get a rescue animal that needs my help constantly.
Yeah.
And it's an eternal toddler.
We are tribal, we are social creatures. So we're actually not supposed to be completely on our own.
That is,
we are supposed to live as a tribe, and we are, our bodies react.
So I can get my
to
dogs.
Us not being.
I'll tell Pete.
Yeah, you will become a part of the pack.
Yes, like the direwolf from Game of Thrones. Will protect me at all costs.
Yeah. So maybe we're not supposed to live like a recluse.
Yeah. So I'm not codependent to my dog then.
Maybe you are. We're all, I guess naturally we're all a little bit codependent to the tribe, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's how our bodies expect us to be.
Yeah, I do know now, from before, maybe not so much before drinking, is when I say before, I know now when I've had enough, and I'm not afraid to say, right, bye, I'm going now.
Yeah, so you're following your intuition, but
I wouldn't have done that before, because I didn't feel it before. And then obviously, if you don't recognise that, and I know a lot of people, and I've been talking to other friends about this now, and I won't go into detail because they'll know who I'm talking about, but they have said, obviously about this time of year, because we're recording this at Christmas for anybody that's listening, just in case. So it's kind of this time of year is when everybody's put together in, and perhaps with people that they wouldn't necessarily want to spend time with if they were given a choice. And they do have a choice, but you do have a choice as to whether or not you want to spend your Christmas time with particular people. But it's kind of an obligation, I feel, that perhaps you then have to go against your intuition then, with people that you might not want to spend time with. There's a lot of people now, I don't know if it's an age thing, where they're coming to the realization saying, well, next year I'm now not going to, I'm going to do it my way.
And maybe there's a little bit of compromise as well. Like my aunt hosts us for Christmas every year, and she hosts us every year because she's amazing at doing it and everyone wants to go there. So we all, passively aggressively put quite a lot of pressure on her to offer to host. I'll do it if we have to. It's really great at your house. It's a bit like that. And
I want to come.
yeah. She's brilliant. But, there's probably a little part of her that would quite like to just go and sit at someone else's house and do nothing.
So you're enforcing it on other
We
people.
enforce it. And I think once it's all done, she's probably fine with having done it. But that compromise of, and whether this is probably not intuition. I don't imagine your intuition has much to do with whether you host Christmas or not. But it's that compromise of, like it's actually not that bad to do it, and it brings happiness to everyone, happiness to the world. So I'll do it. So a little bit of give and take, maybe. There's not much taking on her part, mostly giving.
Yeah. Wow. So do you think then that you should be technically ignoring your intuition sometimes for the greater good? Or is that people pleasing? Or should you just out and out be doing things that should you trust your intuition 100% the whole time then?
Do you think maybe in that situation you have to consider whether you're happy with the consequences?
And what would the consequences be for that? Upsetting people, or
breaking connections, maybe. I think we might be moving. What we're talking about is moving away from intuition. I think sometimes it's not necessarily intuition, is it? More, I'm thinking here. I think we're more talking about boundaries and just doing what you want and what works for you.
I've been there on the boundaries.
Yeah, but maybe sometimes.
So what other forms of being confident in your intuition, if you're in everyday, I suppose, in everyday life? So making decisions on I don't know, on whether you're going to go somewhere and do things, or is there other forms of intuition that you can think of as an example?
Well, what about
I'm trying to think myself, by the way. I'm not just putting this all on you because I'm
as you just used Christmas, as you just said, we're recording this at Christmas. I think what's a really good example of this is the Gavin and Stacey finale, where Gavin says about he thinks that Smithy's doing the wrong thing, marrying. Was her name Sonia?
Sonia, yeah.
No,
they all know Sonia.
Yeah. So I think I am Sonia sometimes. Especially when you're like, why are you wearing those shoes? Why have you got those shoes on? I'm like, that'd be me.
Hopefully we're not ruining this for everyone.
It's the Essex thing. Perhaps we need to get a little bit more Welsh in us. So
I'll take the Welsh part.
Yeah, they all their intuition told them all that he was doing the wrong thing and that they should say something, but they were all too worried about upsetting him. Why do they have the right to say that? How do they say it? What other people thought about them saying it? Every time one of them spoke to the other person and said, I think this isn't right, the other person would kind of shut them down. And so individually, each of them was feeling like, who am I to say this? And I'm probably wrong and it's not right and blah, blah, blah. And then eventually one person said it and everybody says, I agree. And maybe it's a little bit like that with intuition. We fear what other people are going to think. We worry about whether we have the right to do or say the thing that our intuition is telling us. But as soon as one person says it, it seems that other people say, actually, I kind of feel like that too.
But do you think you have to be around like-minded people to be like that? Because
I don't know, maybe.
Or do you think, because you could be around people that are the complete opposite in their thought process of you, and then they could shut down your intuition and you could be right. So then would you then speak up? For like, obviously when Gavin spoke up at, it was kind of, he was on his own for a bit until other people stood up, and he was like, am I doing the right thing? Kind of, I imagine was going through his mind. But what if nobody else had stood up?
Yeah.
And he was on his own. Would you then, like, in that kind of situation, would you then believe that you were right, or would you think that you...
Maybe this is why gossip happens. There was a good podcast I listened to about gossip is good. We think of gossip as being bad, but if he hadn't have gossiped with everyone else, then he wouldn't know that everyone else was going to stand up. If no one had said anything, then he probably wouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
So maybe this is where that happens, and maybe has some benefit when you share something that you're a little bit uncomfortable with, or something doesn't feel right, or your intuition's telling you different with one person. And they
if you ever don't have the confidence in your intuition, do you ask somebody? Do you have different people that you would maybe go to and say, because I know I've done this to you before, when I've had something come up, say, and I've asked you, like, oh, am I right, or in the way that I'm feeling, because I don't necessarily trust myself that I know that I'm overreacting and maybe, or underreacting, and maybe I need that reassurance from somebody who I trust. So would you then say that it's okay to perhaps ask somebody, like, am I, or should you just go with your gut?
I think it's okay to ask people, but I also think you should go with your gut, because, well, I find that when I ask people, I tend to confirm what I'm feeling, because if they take the opposite
confirmation bias
opinion,
if you go to because you could always, like I've said to you before, when you go and I say this to a lot of people, when you're looking on the internet for answers, I was going, if you keep looking hard enough, you'll find the answer that you want, no matter what. You'll find some backing of like even academic research, whatever it is, to back up what you think, if you look hard enough.
Yeah, that. But also, if say, for example, I'm feeling something, or I'm worrying about something, or something's not sitting right, and I mention it to Matt, he might say, no, you're wrong. But that will make me know even more that I'm right, because I'll be so like, I'll want to argue my side, or not my side, but argue. And then that makes me think, I probably am. And also, with regards to feelings, for example, you might run something by me and say, you're feeling whatever. And I might think, well, it's a bit of an overreaction. But at the end of the day, no one can, you can't change your feelings. You can work with it. You can say, this is what I'm feeling, but won't do anything about it, because maybe it's me, not them. But your feelings are still your feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. Or is it, or sometimes is it triggers as well, and it's managing that? If it's things that intuition and and I suppose it's recognizing that as well, isn't it?
And triggers, definitely, are they your intuition?
Yes.
And what's the difference between intuition and triggers? And
another minefield.
Fear come into this, and the discomfort. There's a great quote from Eckhart Tolle, which is something like, you can't evolve from comfort. You have to put yourself into discomfort. Yeah.
This is this is the thing, isn't it?
So you stay completely in your comfort zone, which means you must have to some extent,
break that intuition mold at some point. This is what I'm. This is what I mean about the. Like the making the videos and certain things. Like I don't want to go to so and so because the traffic's going to be bad. Because the traffic's going to be bad. So your intuition is right, and then but you still got to do it, and it's not the fact that but it's just being uncomfortable, isn't it? I suppose.
Some people would say you manifested the bad traffic if you think like that.
Well, there's always alternative routes.
Do you know what I read?
Speaking as well.
Yeah. So as I told you before we hit record, I'm reading Food for Life, the Tim Spector book, and I just read. So as you know, we have a mini brain in our gut. You know, we have all of the same neurons in our gut.
Does everyone know?
Brain. As you know. Do you know? You know this?
Yeah.
What I didn't know was that the amount of neurons, it is neurons, isn't it, in our gut is roughly the same amount as a cat has in their brain. So the brain, the mini brain in our gut.
I'm going to catch up over the next couple of days.
Yeah. The mini brain in our gut is the same size as a cat's brain, which I thought was fascinating. So there you go. That is the intuition, the mini brain in your gut.
Yeah. And then if you upset that, then is your intuition even right?
And if you upset that, are you causing all of the gut problems that everyone has?
I honestly do think that. So
it's too complex for even the most intelligent scientists. So I don't think we're going to come to any answers
Angela
here.
and Juliet said, and therefore it is written.
But it's good to hypothesize and wonder. What's a life without wonder?
So, but also with intuition, like I know what foods, but this is from trial and error. So maybe, and we were talking about this before as well, what foods that you eat and that you know are bad. Is that your intuition speaking, or is that is that knowledge over intuition?
Or is it taking it back to instinct?
Oh, God.
So another thing I was reading about in the book, which you may or may not know, is that our taste is developed to make us dislike bitter things and like sweet things, and it's based on us trying to keep away from things that are damaging to us. So back in the day of foraging and eating only what we could find and kill, we would not want to eat the poisonous things.
But lemons and limes aren't poisonous, are they? So why do we?
There is something about lemons in the books, and I've forgotten it.
Sian used to love that when she was a little baby. I remember her just taking a lemon and being like,
"What's the thing about it? I've forgotten." Anyway, but the point is, instinctually, we should move away from certain foods and go towards other foods. But these manufacturers, these big corporations that are creating these, what does he call them in the book? Ultra processed foods, UPF. The way that they combine the fat and the sugar and the salt to completely override all of our instincts and make them addictive.
They do it on purpose, yeah. They do it on purpose.
And so they are messing with our instincts. Are there other corporations out there that are messing with our intuition?
Yeah. Well, there's loads of psychological factors that go into advertising for anything, isn't there?
Yeah, of course.
So then you could be thinking, I need that. Well, you don't need it.
Yeah. And where does intuition come into that?
Yeah.
And that's...
Do you have to take it, do you have to practice trusting your intuition if you've never thought about it before? Do you have to practice, do you think? Because obviously we're older, we've done lots of things and we've learned lots of, but if you were, say, a younger person, like trying to say to your children perhaps about intuition, because here's an example. So for getting children to say goodbye, to give your auntie a kiss, and the kid doesn't really want to give their aunt, And you're like, no, come on, give Auntie a kiss. And you're like,
Yeah.
obviously, I've never made Sean do that. But I do think that's, and you know, from a young age, and you're telling children to do things that go completely against what they know naturally that they want to do. So therefore, they're confused in that aspect.
Yeah. I think what you said about for people who are have a bit more life experience, then there's obviously critical thinking that needs to go alongside intuition.
Yeah.
I think the example someone used with me once was like their intuition's telling them to buy a massive TV, but you know, a bit of critical thinking, they recognise they don't need a massive TV.
Yeah.
But yeah, with kids, totally, society is totally messing up kids' instincts and
never mind us
intuition.
with ultra processed food, like like little kids, like you're born with it. You're born with everything you need.
Yeah,
it's how you're and then you're cut off. You're told not to do certain things. You're told.
Yeah, and it's no wonder so many females, for example, have problems with sexual relationships when they're forced to be tactile with other people.
Yeah.
And it's not about it's not about what they're doing in that moment. It's about someone else telling them what they can and can't do, and what they should and shouldn't do.
You know, a lack of confidence in your intuition from that point of view is like the red flag side of things in relationships, because you've been forced to do things when you were younger, perhaps, that go against your intuition, and then when you're an adult, it seems normal to you.
Yeah, and no one's got your back. So when your intuition's telling you one thing, as a child, I mean, and you're
they're all micro actions as well, aren't they, that lead up to these things as well. So and they're all things that you possibly don't recognise because it's been taken out of you when you were younger.
Yeah, but immediately your intuition learn that if you express your inner feelings, no one's got your back. And so it then goes on to be frightening to do that, because you're having to stand up to people and no one's supporting you. In fact, they're doing the opposite.
Yeah. This is very true. So then how do you teach your children then to trust their intuition so that they don't end up not trusting it for?
Well, that's
because you know there could be things that they could do that and you know that, like, obviously don't walk over there because you might fall off the end of that. Do you need to let them fall off the end of it to learn that that's dangerous? You know, if you're trying to protect from danger, how far do you go?
Yeah, I certainly I think you have to have your children's back, even if that makes you uncomfortable.
Definitely.
Like, I think Matt is more uncomfortable than me. He would. I mean, he probably would not agree to this, but to some extent, he would allow Ezra and Shiloh to feel uncomfortable to avoid him having to face confrontation. Because you think, it's just, it doesn't happen very often. It's just this once.
Yeah.
But you have to have.
Yeah. See, I definitely think that. Yeah, you like in a protection form.
Yeah. So, for example, if he were with his family who he doesn't see very often, and they were to do or say something or have an expectation of the kids that they're not comfortable with, I think he would be more likely to say, "Oh, we don't see them very often. It doesn't, it's fine," than actually stand there and confront his family and potentially have an argument and all of that. And I think there's probably a lot of people like that who are similar like that. They don't want that
confrontation. But then that, I think, and that comes down to something that I've got a lot of experience in, is the whole generational trauma aspect of things that come down from, I would not allow that to happen to my, and I was very staunch about that because of my upbringing, that was not to happen. Things weren't the way that people talk to my daughter, the way that they behave in front of her, the way that it just simply was not happening on my watch. And that caused a lot of friction, but I am not sorry.
No.
And I'm not,
No.
and I'm not, I 100% know that I was right, trusting my instincts on that. And that in turn gave her the confidence to say, no, I don't want to be around these people. And I won't. And from a young age as well.
Yeah.
Despite what they may have been speaking to her about and things like that. So I suppose that gave her the confidence, but I was not afraid to speak up, I suppose, because of what I'd been through, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't have that intuition when I was younger to say that. So perhaps empowering children to have the confidence, but you've got to then be the adult that knows that to pass that on.
Yeah, you've just reminded me of a time when I have had to follow my intuition recently, actually. And I think this is quite a good example, but I don't want to black mark people, so I have to be careful how I explain it. But the kids go to a group, and it's lovely. Everything about it is brilliant, but somehow they ended up in a situation where a friend of the group leader, who is a male, was kind of coming to the group for short. I mean, the background of the story is he was a friend and he was just popping there to say hi and didn't really realise that he shouldn't have been, that it was an inappropriate situation, and the leader of the group, for whatever reasons, was also not saying you can't do this. And it's very relaxed, and generally I quite enjoy those relaxed environments where everything's a bit kind of, not so rigid and not so school gates prison like. But then there was something that didn't feel right. It was probably actually the fact that the children didn't like this person.
Oh, okay. So they had their intuition. Was it your children, or was this
children.
a collective?
No, so they were.
Did they voice this to you?
Yeah. Okay. And it took me a few weeks to realise that this person was an adult, not a child. So the parents hadn't been made aware of this person coming. It's just the children kept mentioning this person and saying, oh, he did this or he did that. And I was thinking it was another child until they suggested that this person might be the partner of the leader of the group. And that's when I realised it was an adult, and I started to question a little further. And my intuition was telling me this isn't right. And actually, I think this is a really, really good example of intuition, because in another circumstance, and I was questioning myself because I was thinking, in another circumstance with another person, I think I might be all right with this. So why am I being awkward and difficult about this person? And I really, had to push through some barriers. But my first step was to, in a very casual kind of way, at like an event, I asked the leader, who is this person? And I let her explain who he is. And, she said some things like, the kids love having him around. And it was just a combination. It was actually like, what was the word you used? Like micro
actions.
It was a combination of the different things. It was the fact that when external people had come in previously, the parents had been made aware in the weeks before. There'd been an explanation of why they were coming.
Anything to do with children of that age, like you can't just have anybody around legally in anything.
No, but I think in another circumstance I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I would have gone, oh, that's really nice. But with this, there was something that felt didn't feel comfortable.
And was it? Did you go through this though? Was it the fact that it was the protection of your child's intuition? Do you think, or were you getting to that? I've just completely talked over you.
I think it was these micro moments. It was that it was all these different things that came together to create one big thing.
Yeah.
But I did question it because I thought because what I then did was go on to kind of make a bit more of a formal complaint. That still wasn't as formal as it could have been, but a little bit more formal, and request that this person wasn't at the group. And there was part of me that thought, God, who am I to speak for, to say when this is a group with a number of children who might be happy to have this person there. I did hear of one child who had brought this person a Christmas present, for example. So other people were fine with this.
Mm.
Who am I to say, I'm not happy with this, this isn't right? And thankfully there was another parent who said the same, but even stronger than me. But that was after I'd said,
Oh,
I'd
so it's a Gavin
started
and
it.
Stacey,
I kind of
Gavin and Stacey
started,
event there. Yeah.
I started the ball
Yeah.
rolling, if you like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was totally my intuition. It was completely my intuition saying there's something not right about this. And I was able to back my intuition up with
Yeah.
kind of real life stuff.
But do you think that's an example of how sometimes that you need to take a step back and get more information? If your gut's telling you something and you think it's wrong, do you then think you maybe need to, before you jump in, take more information? Or is there certain circumstances, and this is a good example of where you need to gather information? Or do you think it's, if you'd have trusted your intuition more, you'd have jumped in there sooner?
No, I think I was pretty on point with this. I think that I was quite controlled about how I approached it.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I didn't rush into it, but I also didn't allow for too much time for dangerous situations to occur.
Yeah.
So I think that went well, but I thinking about how I felt when my intuition, I think it's a really good example of my intuition telling me something, but me questioning it, because when you do follow your intuition, sometimes it's almost like there's an arrogance of, I've got the right to say this, and I've got the right to speak my truth regardless of what anyone else thinks, and that might affect everyone else. And actually, that I recognised that and thought, am I doing the right thing? And I actually apologised and said, I'm sorry to be that person. Which do you think
you should have apologised? Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I even when I was apologising, I was thinking,
sorry.
why do I?
Why do I need
to apologise? I did it,
is this the politeness thing, like as in like etiquette when it comes to approaching an issue so that it doesn't blow up, perhaps?
Yeah,
it's a whole nother conversation.
For me, it's recognising first. So I know that person might have gone away and gone, someone's being someone's being that person. And so.
But do you think it matters? I don't think anything like that matters when it comes to children.
Absolutely,
I think
agree.
Whatever happens, that's my
opinion.
I think you should always. That's my opinion as well. I just think that, and I've had arguments with Pete about this, because he's like, well, some kids, and I'm like, no, I'd rather trust my child first and question it later than the other way around. And even if I'm wrong or they're wrong.
And also, I'd rather put myself in the face of judgment. But would I for myself? Probably not.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? And also, and this is something that I've been delving a lot more deeper into as well, is if you weren't brought up, so say, obviously, we're quite, I'd say, well versed on all of this, so we understand how we've been perhaps told to not trust our intuition or judgment and things like that. But if you don't have all of this knowledge, then you wouldn't then know to trust your children, because maybe you were told that, not to make a fuss, not to. So, for other people that may not know how to do that, it's because that's not how they were brought up.
Yeah.
They wouldn't know how to trust their intuition. So they wouldn't be empowered themselves if they didn't have all of the information that we've got, perhaps. Then it's kind of... Yeah, sorry, go on.
I also think as a child, if your parent might have your back, and so you learn to trust your intuition, but then that has to remain.
So what if you stick up for them too much? If
you stop. So perhaps when they get to that teenage age where there might be a bit more conflict or something, as the parent, I don't know because I haven't gone through this yet.
Yeah.
But you might need to sacrifice your own self sometimes to still have their back.
But I think it's obviously because I've been through the teenage phase. So, and obviously all of that. But I don't think there were too many from memory, because obviously it was still a little while ago now.
Yeah.
There were too many conflicts there. But I remember we used to sit down and go through pros and cons and things like that. Or a lot of the time, I would just say, because I'd have to not have my tuppence and say, look, are you just venting or do you want my opinion on this?
Yeah.
But I think because of everything that I'd established along the way, she knew what was the right thing to do when it came to conflict, I suppose, and trusting her intuition as a teenager. She still needed a bit of guidance, but I think she kind of had it. She had the things weighed up.
And did you support her in things? So if there was something that you didn't think was right for her, but she was doing, would you support her anyway?
Yes. Yeah. I'd obviously say, look, I think this because of this, but that's your choice on what you want to do. She's not an extension of me. And, that's, if she wants to do that, I'll support her in whatever she wants to do. And that's how we've always been.
So what about someone who hasn't had that?
It was the opposite for me. Yeah, but that was me, wasn't it, when I was younger? So I suppose I didn't have any support in anything when it came to what I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what things that I in my gut knew what was right and wrong, and was constantly told that the opposite.
So did that suppress your intuition?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And how did you find it again?
By stopping drinking alcohol. Without a doubt, I used alcohol to numb feelings, and by stopping drinking alcohol, it all came back to me, because that was what I used. And I'm not because I know that people drink, and I'm not saying that alcohol is is bad for everybody, but for me, alcohol 100% numbed my intuition and led me to make bad decisions.
Do you think it was that once you'd left home and that you didn't have anyone suppressing your intuition, you didn't know what to do when it was there, and so you just continued to suppress it in a different way?
Yeah, I didn't have a clue. I mean, I left home at 17, and I look at my daughter still lives at home now, and she's 23. I mean, God, 17, you're a child.
Well, yeah, your brain's not fully developed until you're nearly 30, so definitely.
Yeah. So I definitely think I made terrible decisions because I never had any guidance. Or it was anything that I had was control. It wasn't guidance; it was control.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that you then have to reestablish what your intuition is as a fully grown adult.
Yeah,
in your mid-40s.
Or maybe find the confidence to listen to it. It sounds like you knew it, you had it. You knew the stuff.
In certain ways. There were certain things that but it wasn't. I'd say fully established. Definitely not. So if I'd have been able to trust what my intuition, there was situations that I was in that I should have spoken out about that I didn't, because I didn't think that they were necessarily wrong at the time. I just thought I was being awkward because that's what I'd been told. So there was a lot of dangerous situations I put myself in because I didn't trust my intuition from a young age.
So you stopped drinking alcohol. Did you do anything else?
I stopped smoking.
And you started to spend more time on your own?
Started to spend more time on my own, yeah.
Did you do anything like journaling or anything?
Oh, tons of therapy, tons of tons of introspection.
Yeah.
Perhaps. So that would have maybe, but it's always there. I think that's important for people to realise that it's always there. It's just how you listen to it and what you've been told, and whether you can break away from that perhaps and start listening. The introspection is 100% what I think helped me understand what was right and wrong in intuition wise.
So you could go to a therapist, or you, if that's out of the question financially or Generally, that's the
Books,
only
internet.
you could
Thing is, you've got to
journal.
think when we were younger, journaling, and also when we were young, you didn't have all the access to this information at your fingertips to know that certain things weren't right. And also, I went down a rabbit hole of trying to understand other people's, but like the way that other people have behaved in my life. But that's not the point. The point is how you take it on and how you heal and how you then sort of heal yourself and move on and understand yourself instead of trying to understand why other people behaved the way they did and why other people did this. And I think
you're so profound.
But I do think that's you can go down these rabbit holes of like, oh, well, they did this because psychologically, and read all research papers on why people's other people's behaviour. When realistically, you need to be looking at yourself and sorting yourself out. And then I personally think that was my journey, but not to say that that's everyone else's.
That's great.
In intuition. I don't know. What do you think?
I think I need to think some more to come up with something as good as what you just said.
But I think that's just a lifetime of making poor intuitional mistakes and then realising. So that's why I just think, you can't sit here thinking, oh, just because we've got it all figured out. Does anyone have it all figured out?
No, that's the part of the excitement of life, isn't it? Trying to figure it out. That's why we do this. Otherwise, I think it's so boring.
Working on your own intuition and working on yourself then helps everything else fall into place, I think, rather than trying to work out other people's behaviour and what other people are trying to do.
Yeah.
Work on your own intuition.
Through journaling, through therapy,
internet,
through taking time.
Get lots of information.
Taking time. Yeah, but does that affect your intuition again? I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But if you're feeling one thing and then you look at someone else's opinion and it's different to yours. But just taking time with yourself to understand yourself. Considering when you've reacted to something, why you've reacted, what it's made you feel. Have you reacted because your body was telling you to do something different?
Yep.
Great. Well,
love it. On that note,
I'll see you later.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
This journey of life with friendship as our guide, together we'll grow, 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 grow. Grow together we'll grow, grow, grow.